But the first contact with life we have that'll end up in history books.
That's government endorsed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will be something we scrape off the bottom of the boot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Most people can't even contemplate those kind of numbers. They're
when
transpermia.
Yeah. Good word. I even thought about I need to Google that earlier, and I thought I can't be asked.
So I very much agree. If there are only one or two per galaxy.
Yeah. We're a lot more special. It's chemistry. And then in this case, chemistry becomes biochemistry might be inevitable. So there are some quite big problems with the idea of that if aliens are out there and there are ancient civilizations, the big problem is, where are they? Why aren't we seeing them? And that's called the Fermi paradox.
Yes.
And the idea is that, if there are advanced civilizations older than us, even with our technology today, they could have sent probes everywhere.
Yeah.
So why haven't they?
Well, the Fermi paradox does completely ignore the entire unidentified flying object topic. And although 95% of that is misidentified phenomenon, atmospheric phenomenon, military aircraft, civilian aircraft, you're just ignoring that 5% that are real metallic objects travelling at credible speeds, surpassing our technology, tracked on radar, a large number of credible witnesses, and yet we still say, well, swamp gas didn't happen. Are we just ignoring what's in plain sight?
Possibly. The other thing I was thinking about, that if we're going to talk about the question, are they already here, are aliens already visiting us, is it seems to me that obviously for this series I've been looking into a lot of the ancient civilizations and things like this, and looking at a lot of ancient artwork and things like this. It seems to me that as long as we've been able to draw or write or any of these things, or tell stories, we have had stories about flying objects and
in the sky,
and being visited by, and it's possible that our entire religion over the millennia have been based on this thinking.
They've been based on perhaps misinterpretation of alien visitation in the past and impartment of wisdom. Moses, Mount Sinai and the Ten Commandments is a prime example of God descending from the heavens in a puff of smoke and giving man 10 rules to live by.
Well,
perhaps they just didn't understand who was giving them the rules.
Exactly. And I think we are an imaginative species, and it seems to me that there tends to be a lot of these stories tend to have a nugget of truth to them. We then make them into, these massive things, but they seem to always have a nugget of truth or a nugget of reality to them. So
yeah, we tend to, I suppose, historically people tend to anthropomorphise.
Yeah, good word again. Well done.
Astrology. Into religion. So a lot of religions are built, aren't they, based on astrological observations, but they didn't really have astronomy as we understand it now. In previous years.
They looked up, didn't understand what they were looking at.
And then they built up stories around what they didn't understand, which makes sense.
Yeah, especially when every so often they would see meteorites and things like this come down. So they would think that was the stars coming down and potentially cause massive devastation. And I can understand when they would think that it was somehow affecting them.
It's just where you got those myths where they're strikingly scientifically correct in the modern day, yet they date back thousands of years when they shouldn't have had that scientific understanding. That's where I start to wonder.
It's actually, because I've planned ahead, our third episode we're going to talk about that a great deal, actually, about these creation myths and how there are certain tribes in different places that their myths are very close to the modern thinking of what is of how things have developed, and it's a little scary. You read some of them. You remove all the metaphor. You remove the metaphor and the flow, and you actually break it down to the basic what they're saying. It's like that's really accurate to actually what is true.
Not far off our scientific understanding today.
But funnily, it's not what we maybe thought 30 years ago, but it's what we've now realised is true. So these guys knew something we didn't know even 30 years ago, potentially.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got things like David Ike and lizard people and the moon.
I find David Ike an interesting character.
I said to you before, I've actually met him.
Yes, he said you have, yes.
He came and did a talk in the local town here, back when he still thought he was Jesus. So there was only 6 of us that turned up, and he was brilliant. He wasn't an arse about it. He got off the stage, and he come down, he sat next to us, and he just talked to us for 4 hours or something. It was great.
Which is nice. It's nice when somebody's not that up themselves that they couldn't come down and speak to you as a small group. I respect that from him. That's actually, yeah, he could have just
looked around the corner and gone 6 of them, and buggered off home.
Yeah,
but he didn't. He was a good laugh, and he didn't just talk about crazy shit. He just talked to us for a couple of hours, and he told us the stuff that he believes. At the time, he believed. He basically, now he comes back and says, like, the aliens basically downloaded a bunch of information into his head. He couldn't handle it, and he went nuts for a couple of years. I saw him in the nuts period, but even he'll say now that back then he did go. He was affected by this download, and it made him go crazy. So he did think he was the son of God when I saw him. But he wasn't. He didn't come over as crazy. He came over. What he was saying was crazy. But he didn't. He came over very believable, and you come out of it going, all right, okay, that poor sod has something happened to him, but okay, he's interesting.
He's interesting,
and he
believes what he's saying.
Yeah, I have a lot of time for David Ike. I think he's amazing. No, he's not a liar. He believes what he's saying.
Okay. I did suspect that from the little I have seen of him.
Yeah. But we'll do an episode on David Ike. He's great.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can go into.
I'll email him, see if we can get him on the episode.
Yeah,
he does. He does do things like that.
Does he do that?
So, yeah, he'll talk to anyone.
All right.
You never know. We'll have a David Ike interview.
Why not?
So, I think it's worth talking about, though, that if aliens are visiting us.
Yep.
Right. The SETI project. If we talk about that is actually a planned effort to speak to ET.
Yes.
Right? Start by Carl Sagan was a big influence on that when they started the project. It was another fellow's name, I've forgotten his name, but and we've been using radio telescopes to try and look out into the universe. SETI don't just use radio telescopes, so they've done loads of different projects of that, and obviously people much cleverer than us. And we've seen things like the WOW signal in 1977.
Yes.
That they initially thought was the first time might be a signal. Yep. We've seen more since.
Yeah, we've had one recently, about 12 months ago, that they sat on for a while before releasing, and again, it's another signal.
There's this. I think I've seen 2 or 3 since about 2015.
It's about 10 times the amplitude, isn't it, of anything that could be naturally created, or they think that's 10 times the amplitude of anything that's naturally created. Unfortunately, again, it wasn't a repeated signal, though. It was a short burst, wasn't it, for a certain length of time, and then wasn't repeated again. So, again, it's not been verified by repetition at any point, as the original WOW signal wasn't either. I don't think.
But actually, that would make sense, because I've been learning quite a lot about radio signals as well recently, and I always believed that we were sending out radio signals and they were just going massively out, and we've had this big sphere around us 100 years wide,
reaching up every corner of our galaxy.
Yeah, but apparently it's not really true. No. We sent out a lot of radio signals early on, but then since we started encrypting radio signals, we don't actually send that much out. It's a lot more focused. So actually, there isn't that much to go out and see, potentially, in the wider universe. And if another species is using radio, it might be the same. It might actually be quite difficult to spot them. There isn't this big blanket of radio.
No. I think people are under that impression that it's a massive blanket that's going in. And unfortunately, you can't just send out a 360-degree signal everywhere. in our universe, or in our galaxy. Sorry.
SETI has also done projects trying to look for laser and high energy. They did the 1.5 gig bandwidth. They've also done projects trying to look for laser. So these are very clever guys. Look there. I mean, I think we joked about it not long ago that SETI have massively wasted their time. But just looking for radio, because why would aliens use radio?
Well, that's it. I do think that we're perhaps looking in the wrong part of the electromagnetic spectrum. To reference, I suppose, David Sarida and his From Here to Andromeda documentary, where he talks about we should be looking in much higher energy end of the frequency spectrum. Because
but the problem is we don't have the technology.
Well, that's it. We might understand the technology with which they're now transmitting the signals, and in actual fact, if you think about where we're at now with analog and digital, right? We've actually switched to digital signals, which are actually much harder to send or receive through space than analog signals are. So actually, as our civilization is becoming more advanced, we're becoming less detectable by other species.
They need to
out
be, they're
in
basically
the universe.
aimed, aren't they? That's the point. They're not just. It's not just it's a focused signal, much more focused signal. So unless you're actually at the place it's being aimed at, it's not detectable, or it's not as detectable. But also there is the point that if we were using radio, if in 1,000 years' time we travel to Proxima Centauri, and we set up a colony, we're not going to be using radio signals. If we're still using radio, if there's no other way to communicate, we will not be able to communicate to that colony.
Not very easily, no. I mean, it's going to take...
Well, it'll take 10 years.
It'll take 10 years, roughly, yeah, there and back, yeah.
Was it 4.7 light years?
So I think it's
radio
about that,
travels at the speed of light, so that's 4.7 years there, 4.7 years back.
Yeah, so the best part of 10 years, which in terms of real-time operations is useless.
Yeah, so you may as well just leave them to it. And that's one point. If a colony goes there, if we're still using radio, they're on their own. Yeah,
I mean, they could send you a little message to let you know how they're getting on, maybe 100 years into setting up camp there, or even shorter than that, maybe 20 years after setting up camp there, they could send you something back so you know at 30 years how they were doing at 20 years.
Yeah, we'd have forgotten they'd gone by then.
But would anybody really be that interested back on the Earth at that point because of the delay of the signal? So I do agree. I do think
and also,
that by the time
if they're sending a message going, oh, we need help, you know, they're saying they're on their own. That's what I mean. There's no...
You've got to know that you need help 10 years in advance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. It's not going to work.
No.
So yeah,
if there isn't faster than light communication, though, it's useless. But we've been assuming then that we've been looking for radio, and that is that the aliens are then still using a technology we understand. My point would be maybe they're not.
Could they be using a technology that has figured out a way to send signals faster than the speed of light? Possibly, if they can travel faster than the speed of light in craft.
More interestingly, possibly instantaneously.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, and again, if that's we might not know even how to look for that if we're trying to find evidence.
Well, trying to find a signal that's warping space-time, travelling faster than the speed of light, and then coming out at a completely different part of space.
Yeah. You might see the energy required to send it, maybe a burst of energy.
Yeah, you might see the burst of energy that would be required to send it. Yeah, because that would be quite large.
You wouldn't be able to see the signal. Yeah. Maybe you could see the effect of the signal.
Maybe.
But we need to know what we were looking for, though.
But yeah, this is it. It's beyond the realms of our comprehension.
It's like cavemen trying to tune into the BBC. It's just not going to happen. They don't know it exists to look for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a very good analogy, actually. That's perfect analogy for it.
Thank you. It's like I thought about it beforehand. But then actually we get into the real cutting edge science things as well, and if we're talking about quantum entanglement, I actually think that is...
Yeah, I think that's fascinating.
That's not faster than light, that's instant.
Yes.
So just if you don't know, very, very simply, quantum entanglement is you get two particles from a similar source, from the same source, they're somehow entangled, which means they're connected to each other. The experiment that I saw, which I loved, was scientists... The only experiment where they had quantum entangled photons, and they split them, and then they shot the one photon through basically like a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
In the shape of a cat, and they shot it in the shape of a cat. On the other side, they did nothing. They just allowed the particles to go through as normal.
Through the slit.
And they went through, and they looked like it wasn't as nice. It wasn't as neat as the other one, but it was a cat.
But it still had.
It was the same image.
It had an interference pattern. Yeah. The outline was clearly the same shape as the
it was a little fuzzier, but it was
had been through.
It was the cat. It was the same.
Yes.
So those photons somehow communicated to each other.
Yep.
And it's been shown as well now. It's proven that it doesn't matter on distance. These things, it's instant. When you're talking about a particle like this, it's spinning upwards. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. That when we look at it, we go, it's spinning upwards. We know the entangled particle is spinning downwards, and it's always the way. It's always the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem is, before you look at it, because of weird things in quantum mechanics, before you look at it, it's actually spinning upwards and downwards. Yeah, if it's got two options, it's doing both.
It's doing both, yes. But until you observe
it, and then it decides, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this is again a proven quantum mechanical fact, and it makes no sense in reality. And that's why a lot of, if you Google or go on YouTube and look for videos on why can't we use quantum entanglement for communication, there's reasons that I don't understand.
Yeah, they are very technical. I'll have a look into those reasons and see if I can.
I watched the video
them.
and I sat in the end and went, no, don't get it. If we could somehow take a particle and control it and make it flip up or down and observe it constantly, then you've got the entangled proton on the other side. So if I can make it go up, down, and does the same thing on the other side, that's binary communication. You could do ones and zeros, and you could send information.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
but it would be
binary,
instant.
Yeah, instant
regardless of distance. Now, we're probably going to get comments explaining why that's wrong, and there'll probably be comments I don't understand and why that's not right.
Yes.
But my point is that it's the transfer of information instantly is possible. We've seen it. We just don't know how to use it.
Okay.
That seems to be the crux of it, I think.
Okay.
But again,
I'm sure quantum entanglement will come up in another episode again.
Yeah, I can't wait to
of
talk
which
about quantum mechanics.
we'll go into more detail as to why they don't think it can currently be used
as far as
as a
I'm
method
concerned,
of communication.
Quantum entanglement's witchcraft. If you're going to say to me anything's impossible, I'm just going to go with quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
You tell me that you're telling me that anything that you think ghosts or anything, which I don't believe in ghosts, but if you tell me that ghosts or anything aren't real, and I'm just going to go, yeah, quantum entanglement. That's real, and it's far weirder.
Yep.
And that is, as far as I'm concerned, is witchcraft. It's evil. We should.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, quantum entanglement, about a lot of things. If that can be correct, then our understanding of physics is far away from where it needs to be. Especially when you consider 70% of the universe is dark energy, and 25% of the universe they reckon is dark matter. So we only know 5% of the actual universe.
We're looking at the universe through a little hole, aren't we? And we can see 5% of it.
And we can see 5% of it. The other 95 we don't see.
And again, so we know it's there, but we have no idea what it is. You, again, Google what is dark energy, and you'll have some very clever people coming up with some theories about asymmetry and things like this, but the answer is we don't know.
No, they don't know.
So there's no way of knowing whether the current laws of physics apply to 95% of the universe. We've got no way of knowing.
No, we don't know that. No, not 100%.
An alien technology might know.
Possibly.
Or might know more than we do.
More advanced alien technology, yeah, or more advanced alien species may understand more than we do.
The dark matter drive.
I have a feeling that it's always going to be a quest to understand more, and that you will never finish that quest.
Yeah.
However, I think more questions will only ever come from understanding more. So the more you know, the less you understand.
I hope we never get to a point where we go, well, we know everything now.
I don't think it's
possible.
Lord Kelvin did that, didn't he, in the early 1900s, and said everything for sort of scientifically that
done.
is discovered has been discovered and we're done. And then Einstein came out with his special theory of relativity several years later.
And then somebody else came up with quantum mechanics, and so
I think
bollocks.
That was a very naive statement by,
to say the least,
Mr. Kelvin.
So, if there are aliens out there, alien civilizations, which I think we'll both agree mathematically is very likely.
Yep.
Are they visiting us?
Yeah, I personally believe that they are. We don't have any government endorsed proof of these visitations, but if you look at the volume of sightings since we developed nuclear weapons in the 1940s.
I would say before that, Foo Fighters.
Oh yes, they were obviously very concerned probably in World War II as well, because we were dropping big bombs on each other and destroying large areas of landmass on the planet. But but certainly from that time of sort of World War II onwards, development of the atomic bomb, there seems to be a dramatic increase in the number of UFO sightings.
I can see that aliens, if they were visiting us, they would come to periods like that because it's historical, isn't it? And they'd be interested to... It's like we do. We study... we go into the Amazon, we find tribes that have had no contact with things for thousands, ever, sort of thing. We want to study that, don't we? We have people that are interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that alien civilization would come and go, look at these primitive fuckers. Let's, look at why do they do that? And they would want to understand that. I could totally understand that.
They want to observe us. I I'm not 100% sure we are being observed. I'm not 100% sure we're not being observed either.
No.
Though. I think the truth probably lies in the middle. And
when the Greys take you and are alien probing you, and you'll go, oh, it's true.
I quite like what Nick Pope says. He just all it takes is one person to smuggle one artifact back off the ship, though.
Yeah, just wine. Yeah, but they're going to be better than that, though, aren't they? They're going to know. They're going to check your pockets. You'll be like,
well, if they don't communicate,
come here, give it back.
If they communicate by non-verbal communication, i.e. telepathic communication, they won't need to check you for anything. They'll know that you've stolen it because you'll be telling them. But anyway,
I generally don't think they'd be the aliens on board. I think they'd be drones.
Quite possibly, yeah.
And again, if we're talking about instant communication, they can put the 3D goggles on like we would do, and if you've got instant, you can control it. Why would you send people? Why would it be a manned alien?
Yeah, it's still manned.
Object?
Why would it be a manned craft?
Why would it be a manned craft?
Well, that's what I would argue.
Manned mean man, though? Wouldn't it be aliened?
Wouldn't it be an alien craft? Well, yes, all right, an occupied craft.
Occupied craft, thank you. So
that's
it's an occupied craft,
but
it's more likely it's like a robot and a
yes.
drone.
Yeah, more likely, yes. Most likely, a lot of the saucer-shaped UFOs are most likely scout ships for alien motherships if they were intelligently controlled metallic discs flying at incredible speeds, tracked on radar, of that small 5% of the UFO sightings that are unexplainable.
Now again, that sounds like mental, but Stephen Hawking, before he died, generally argued that point. Yeah. He said that if Stephen Hawking, who we stole our title off, by the way.
Never a bad choice to steal from.
No, if you're going to steal from somebody, steal from Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But he argued basically that the Independence Day story of these massive motherships, they've used all their resources in their own world, and they become nomadic aliens. And if we're going to get visited by aliens, that's probably what we'd be visited by.
Yep.
And if they do, we should be worried because they're not going to care about us. They will sweep us out the way and they will start taking. But that's, to be fair, they probably wouldn't even come to Earth. They'd mine, if they're after metals and things like this, they'd mine the asteroid belt.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's why worrying about a hostile alien species is such an irrelevant thing to worry about, because if they are more advanced than you and they want to wipe you out, you're not stopping them.
Oh, we wouldn't even know.
So it would just have happened and we'd all be dead.
Yeah.
So
or they would just literally. This would have been that if they went for the asteroid belt, we might even know they're there.
Yeah.
We'd probably see what's going on with the asteroid belt, and they'd fly. They wouldn't give a. Would they give a crap about us?
No, I don't think so.
Earth isn't where all the resources are in our solar system.
Apart from in the way we'd be interested in species on another planet, we probably wouldn't care about them. We'd be interested in them in terms of biologically and.
But say they wanted water,
understanding them.
So they want water.
We wouldn't care about them necessarily.
They don't have to come to Earth to get water. They can go to the Orca belt, the Orca cloud, and mine comets. They can go to Europa. We've already discussed how they can go to Europa, and there's twice as much water on Europa as is on the Earth. Just the fact that we're here, they might not give two sods about, other than, like you said, in an interesting point of view of, let's have a look what they've done. There's no reason for them to come to the Earth because there's minerals. They reckon there's an asteroid floating around there. There's one massive diamond. It's the size of Everest, but it's a diamond. There'd be no reason to come to the Earth, potentially.
No.
But anyway.
Certainly wouldn't.
So we're going to talk about quickly. I'm just going to mention, though, that at the end there, that when Assange used to do WikiLeaks thing,
Julian Assange,
Ed Snowden,
Edward Snowden,
who is now living in Russia.
Indeed.
He was asked. They both got access to a lot of material. They were both asked, "Did you ever see anything that suggested that the government were hiding anything about aliens?" And they both said no.
No, although the information they were primarily going through was current military.
Yeah, but you think it would be the military that would
very recent military operations, which was heavily littered with Iraq and Afghanistan operations, primarily. Yeah. So I don't know if they were looking in the right place.
Small place. And
Gary McKinnon, on the other hand, who hacked into Building 8 of the Kennedy Space Center.
Oh, says he did. We'll do that when
the American government tried to prosecute him for it. They
Yeah.
wanted his extradition because he caused £5,000 worth of damage to several hundred machines, and they were trying to get him imprisoned for several consecutive life sentences. But he only actually hacked in by using the username admin and the password blank. Was how he hacked in.
My password is password.
So the username administrator and no password. And
that's
that's how he got into NASA, the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon.
So you watch War Games and Matthew Broderick going, it was programmed by this bloke called Jeff. I'm Nick and Eddie, as I joke now. So I think his password would be Jeff. And his dog's name was Jeff. And I'm going to go through the back door, because they always build in a back door. But then you do that in admin password. Oh, God's sake!
Yeah, that's how easy it was for him to get in.
Yeah.
So he supposedly said that he found not only images where there were a processed folder and a raw images folder, where he found corresponding images. One that was the raw image and the one that was the processed one that then had things airbrushed out before it was being released to the public. He also happened to find a list of extraterrestrial military officers that are currently out in space.
Right.
And he also found a ship list of
the USS
interstellar US military vehicles.
So
One called the USSS Enterprise, the United States Secret Space Program Enterprise.
See, now that would be the first ship you built, wouldn't it? It would be the Enterprise would be the first one.
There are little snippets that do make you wonder
That'd be all right,
as to when these people find these things and whistle blow.
That's what you want. You want a super secret spaceship named after you. That's what you want. Right. So, your opinion then.
Yeah.
So, no evidence, just what your gut tells you.
Well, I think from everything that's been said in the episode, my gut tells me that there are intelligent species in our galaxy. Others, I think that's absolutely.
Are they visiting us?
I think they're visiting us. I think they've always been visiting us.
Yeah.
I think there's cave paintings that show this going way back up to present day events and increased UFO sightings and alien abduction stories from recent years since World War II. I just think that the universe is there to propagate life, and where there's a chance for life to start, it starts, and then the evolution occurs, and eventually you get towards humanoid beings capable of analysing their own existence. And I just don't think it's something that's going to be individual to this one planet. It just seems that it's too vast a universe for it to just happen once.
So now, I want to believe in all this. I do want to. I want to have a Star Trek style universe full of life that's everywhere. And I'm absolutely certain life exists throughout the universe. I'm sure bacteria we can't kill the buggers, they're everywhere. And I'm certain they'll like I say, on Earth, as soon as it got chance, life kicked off. And I'm absolutely certain somewhere in 2 trillion galaxies there's going to be intelligent life as well. I think it's probably quite rare. Oh no, it's not that I think it's quite rare. I don't think we have enough data. I worry it might be quite rare.
Yeah, I worry it's rare, but I think it's more likely to be prevalent than it is to be rare.
Yeah. I think we're really good at killing ourselves as well, which is one of why I worry that our civilization might not even be here in 1,000 years. So
fair comment. We are very hostile species that likes killing its own. So who's to say that alien species wouldn't be the same?
And the thing about a lot of the alien stuff, I've never seen evidence that I am absolutely certain that was aliens, ever. I've seen stuff that I'm not sure about. Phoenix Lights is a good example. I watch that and I go, that's weird. Something's going on that's weird there. And the government's excuse is bullshit. There's something happened there. But is it aliens? I can't say. I don't.
Well, I mean that's always the question. An unidentified flying object of that 5% that
it's unidentified.
It's unidentified.
It would be an FO.
That's why it's almost better to perhaps not use the phrase UFO, because people have a connotation that directly incite or means that it's aliens that are controlling the vehicle. Perhaps it's better to use
places don't use
aerial
phenomenon or
unknown aerial phenomenon, a UAV, because it could be quite possible that some of the UFOs or UAVs are the cutting edge of someone's military tech that nobody else has seen.
It's like the word conspiracy, isn't it? That's become, if you're a conspiracy theorist, it's become synonymous with being a bit of a nut and what have you. And the CIA did a very good job of doing that.
Of the association of the word theory with conspiracy.
And again, the word theory has become have negative connotations. The scientists use the word theory in very specific ways, but people that want to debunk things like climate change and things like this, they jump on the word. It's
use
just
the
theory.
word theory to their
It's just a
advantage.
theory.
Well, yes.
I know, yes, but a theory and a scientific principle means something very specific. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's something we'll discuss later.
But that's what the CIA coined the phrase, isn't it? If you associate with a theory that there's not necessarily any direct evidence for it yet, we haven't developed the scientific experiment to prove the hypothesis or the theory. Hence, a conspiracy theory is an out there theory with no evidence to back it.
Exactly.
Where
yeah.
that isn't actually the case for a lot of what they term conspiracy theories. There's actually some hard evidence quite often that points towards the alternative viewpoint rather than the official government story.
I like the idea of alternative viewpoint rather than conspiracy theory. I
Yeah.
prefer that thing, and it is because truth has perspectives, truth has layers, and to say that something's black and white isn't true. So when you're on Twitter and you say that this is right and get all angry, remember that there are viewpoints to these things. It's always more complicated. Always more complicated. You can say what you feel, but don't jump onto something's a fact unless it's about you personally. Right, okay, so that's our first episode. It's in the bag, done.
Yeah.
So the next episode is about the moon.
Yeah.
And all the theories that go with that.
Formation of the solar system and the formation of the moon. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk about hollow moon. We're going to talk about flat Earth very briefly. And all the theories that go along with that. So that's going to mess. So if you've enjoyed what you've listened to, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
But like and subscribe.
Please like and subscribe. Yeah.
And we will see you again very shortly. All right. Thanks very much.
It's more just like a stray hair I can see like pointing out. You're just like, no, flatten.